Hello, back with the Trick Way. That's Grey Gamer. I'm Trainspotting Trev, if you want to call me. Gray's got a bit confused here. Gray's excited about this episode, but we're not going to tell you why. We want to save it until
Oh,
the point. So am I as well, actually. In fact, our score's a little bit higher because of someone that appears. Um, and it's safe to say you're excited about this one, Gray, in general.
oh yeah.
If you take away this character, it was a good episode for you anyway.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, luckily they've, with the exception of the one singing one, they've kind of had some strong episodes towards the end,
Yeah.
which has been good. I just can't believe it's 10 episodes and the season's over. I'm like, what?
Well, that's when you have a couple of shit episodes. That's what that was part of our
Yeah,
rant before.
yeah,
Don't give us crap episodes because we don't get much trick. So
yeah. It's just and it's the
um,
way of the world now. Nothing's going to go beyond 12, 10, 12 tops. I
true.
mean, the only thing that I saw recently was rare. Was what was it? Daredevil by Marvel supposed to go 18 episodes.
Yeah, but
That's
that's
like extremely rare for this.
it's going to be split into two seasons, a bit like they done with Prodigy. Or
Of
no,
course,
one season, but like 1.5, if that makes sense.
yeah,
So,
of course
of course
they'll do
course
that.
they are. Yeah. Listen, actually, before we start this episode, I'll get the paperwork out the way because as well as finding the Trickway and all the YouTubes and the podcast platforms where you get them, we're on the Twitter at the Trickway as well, and an extra special plug for Gray's Pod, which is Gray's Green Room. That will be back next week. We're a couple of reasons, just personal reasons in our lives. We had to take a longer break and there's not been as much to talk about. But with all the stuff in the Hollywood strikes at the moment and the writer strikes, writer and actor strikes, we want to talk about that and some things we have been watching. And one of the things I'll be talking about is why Star Trek is not as good because of the shorter seasons. And it was something Michelle heard, Raffi, Musica said that actually hit home to me, but I'll save that for next week. So that's why you need to download Gray's Pod when it comes out, and he's like me, YouTube, Gray's Green Room, podcast Gray's Green Room, and Twitter, Gray's Green Room. And sometimes when we can, when private lives are not escaping from us, we do a gaming pod where our friend colleague Nick at Extreme PC UK under all the same platforms as well. So hopefully we get back next week for that one. But
And remember, look down below for all the links to everything we're telling you.
they're all there. They're all there, and I always have them in my about section as well. So, but yeah, let's kick off anyway. So this is the finale, and it was a good one. It's season 2, episode 10, called Hegemony. Am I pronouncing that right? I think.
I think so. Although
I think
it
so.
kind of sounds weird. It sounds like mayonnaise or something. It's just
I don't know what it means.
homogeny. It's a recipe for something. It's like,
It does. It does. It sounds like something that your grandmother would bake for you or something like that. I have no clue. But yeah, we'll kick off.
some haggis.
No.
Well, haggis starts with H.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah,
Probably tastes a
well.
lot better than that. It is linked to something in the episode. They don't just put titles down for nothing, but it does link to something. So yeah, we knew this episode was coming for a while, Gray. They kept teasing it for ages, but people were complaining there wasn't enough of a build up to it because we got like one of the early episodes with Admiral April looking at the possible issue with the Gorn on the chart, and then you heard next to nothing from then until now. Would you have preferred a little bit of a build up to it? I know it's serial.
I think I would have. I think I would have done it. It wouldn't necessarily have to take an entire episode, but there should have been something a little more, Easter egg dropping besides that one that we saw here and there. I think would have been good, like some conversation maybe between Pike and the Admiral again later in the season, and they're saying, something like the Gorn have been getting aggressive lately, la la la, something like that. Yeah, that would kind of make more sense. I get the idea that they want to be episodic, but they do toy with some overarching. So if you're going to do that, then at least name drop here and there, a little more than you are.
We like a name drop. We like that. So
it's a bit nitpicky, but it's just just something I would do if I was the writer. But
yeah, I won't take points off for that. Certainly not. But yeah, it would have been handy. But yeah, and I also thought
we will take points off for singing. So if they sing again,
this is true. This is very true. Actually, that they'll get no points. No, I was going to say some people were saying, Gray, that they were hoping this episode would have been longer, just because of what's happened in the past, some episodes not being as great and not getting a build up. But I knew that wouldn't be the case, and yeah, it's a cliffhanger. Yeah,
Sure.
anyway, yeah.
When you're about halfway into this episode, you already knew.
I didn't.
Cliffhanger. There's just no. I could just see the way things were developing. They weren't developing fast enough, and I knew that if they by midpoint they would have to rush to really get to an answer, and I didn't want them to rush.
Yeah, but shows do that all the time. That's the point.
Yeah, but this would have been way too much because so much was going on. So I just knew that they had. Plus, let's put it this way: we know that everyone, typically loves to end on a cliffhanger because it gets your audience to tune into that next episode of the next season. Now, the only bummer is, of course, unless you guys have been hiding under a rock lately, there's been a writer and actor strike going on for quite a while. In fact, the writer strike is already into its 4th month, I think. And the actors are in their 2nd month or whatever. So everything's being pushed down as far as anything new coming. And it's already been affecting everything. And and the bummer here is that by the time they get to season 3 of Strange New Worlds, people, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but it's probably going to be end of 2024, maybe even as late as the beginning of 2025. And I'm sitting there going like, no.
Yeah.
Do we have to wait that long?
Well, look at the positive side of it. It means you finally have to watch Battlestar Galactica. So,
yeah, believe me, I'll be pulling every rabbit out of the hat to watch because there's not gonna be much to see. I mean, I have a long list of shows that I like to keep up with, generally speaking.
yeah,
None of them are gonna come back on at the right time, so I'm gonna go.
There's not many coming on. I'm looking forward to maybe a Ahsoka from Star Wars. That's about it. But
yeah, there's a couple. You're right. There's a couple of new things coming up, but still, but for us Trek fans, that's going to be killed.
Well, and that's the other thing. They're going to only do 2. They're only going to probably rumored to be doing 2 shows, 2 Star Trek shows a year, with a third maybe being on like a Prodigy being sold to Prime or something like that. So they're cutting down. So if you have ideas for specials and things in Star Trek you want us to talk about, please do. We can review old episodes again.
It's kind of funny though, because one of the shows that I originally didn't think would make it this far was Lower Decks, and yet Lower Decks is already going to be running. Yeah, it's already running into its 3rd season, right? I think coming up.
Yeah.
So starting in September.
So is it 4th? I don't know actually.
I forget now whether it's 3rd or 4th. I'll find out. So the good thing is, well, good and bad, is that after this show that we're doing now,
it's getting into the 4th.
There's 4 weeks until we get Lower Decks, but
which is not too bad.
Trev and I were talking a little off the air. We'll definitely try to squeeze some specials. We've already got ideas for a couple, so you'll still see us.
Yeah, I done this before, Gray, and you totally missed your cue. I done this and everything, and you just fell asleep. So
I didn't see that. Do it again.
No, you'd have to do it by yourself.
Come on, you could do it. Come on, one more time.
Come on. This was a present from a dear friend. And Joyce, if you're watching, thank you.
I love that shirt. I saw that shirt online. I was looking at buying it maybe, and I didn't at the time, but that's a really nice shirt. And the reason why that's nice is because a lot of times they only do the small logo like picture. This thing is like full length. I mean, Jesus,
but they need Jim going like this. They need Jim standing.
Somewhere in the corner with that.
But yeah, so listen, we've been waffling for too long. We better kick off there because there'll be more waffling to come for sure.
That's true.
So yeah, no, I'm excited to talk about this one. Rumors were that Captain Patel could be killed off in this, right? And we start off with her on the colony planet, which we see from the teaser trailer earlier on in the season, Grey, with that Gorn mothership, which we don't get a proper look at, by the way. So that's what I call starship teasing, because you see a little bit of it. I wanted to see it properly because I like starships.
I guess they're kind of like, slow reveal. We're going to get it more next season.
I hope so. Yes, that's the plan.
It did look kind of cool. It looked kind of almost like a
alien ship,
like a blue, like a blue whale. With the weird looking mouth thing. It was really strange looking.
I mean, you must have saw more of it than I. I saw like the edge of the wings or something. That was about it. But yeah. So what I found amusing, although they didn't sing, thankfully, there was a little when Battelle was on the planet, or the colony planet, speaking to Pike on Enterprise. There was a little, how are you guys doing? And Pike's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not burst out into song recently, so that's always good. So I like that little nod, just making fun of themselves. But that's all you're allowed to say, and we move on. We never, ever sing again.
Yeah, it was good.
Oh, and I apologise, guys, if Grey goes a little bit still or the audio cuts out. It's probably on my end. There's so many tourists in Edinburgh at the moment. It's
let me throw everybody off.
God, you're not helping. What I found interesting was when Pike and Battelle are speaking to each other, the signal starts to get a bit flaky. And I'm thinking like someone's not paid their mobile phone or their cell bill recently, But these things are crystal clear in the future, so you're thinking something's up. Oh, it's getting worse and worse, and then it gets cut out. And I knew it was coming as soon as that bit happened, man. I knew the shit was about to hit the fan. And it does get cut off immediately as we see a shuttlecraft just flying through the sky, like crashing, smoke coming off it. Someone's trying to crash the ship. We find out who that is later on.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a better way of saying it, Chris.
That was actually a good scene. It was a scary one too, because like everybody's going like, "What's going on?" This thing's almost crashing, and Patel's going like, "Oh boy, is that one of my crew or something? What's going on?"
Yeah.
And then little do we know that the bigger scene was coming up next, and it's just like, what?
Yeah, that you do see the Gorn ship coming out. Think of Independence Day, the movie where the alien ship is so big and it's trying to slow down, but it's still going so fast that it literally affects its own weather around it, and it pushes clouds out the way. So you've got the clouds surrounding the ship, and you don't see all of the Gorn mothership, but it looks, and it came down really low. You don't really get that from starships.
Very low.
But that was cool. That was really, really cool. The Battelle ship, the Cayuga, I thought I'd actually write that down because it's pronounced many times throughout the episode, and I had no clue how to spell it until I went to find out. Do we know what that's? Is that a word or a place in America, Gray, that I need to know about?
I think it is. I didn't look it up, but yeah, a lot of times it's things like that from literature or actual places, and
often it is. Often is. So the Cayuga sends out an emergency hail, and the look in Pike's face when he hears this on the Enterprise, man, he literally he would have had the kids in his arms and he would have dropped them. He gave no shit. He was genuinely concerned. Obviously, best speed to Genesis. Sorry, I've been watching a bit of old Star Trek movies recently. Best speed to the colony planet to Ortega, who books it and gets there. And then when they come out of warp, wow, great! This was a bit surreal. We saw this briefly in the trailer, but until you see it in the episode, you saw, and I assumed straight away what it was. Rightly so, it was the Cayuga's hull. It was absolutely battered, like almost to the level of when Kirk he sends the original Enterprise to its doom. It was the original Enterprise, wasn't it? Yeah. So the end of Star Trek 3. And I just thought, like, how is this species able to do so much damage to what's supposed to be the most advanced ship in the fleet? But then we know very little about the Gorn, do we, at this stage? So maybe that's normal? Were you shocked what you saw? Did you think that's they got a bit too much of a pasting?
I don't know if I was that shocked, only because we don't know exactly what happened. But if it was the mothership, and that mothership was awfully large.
True.
So if the mothership attacked it, I'm assuming it would attack it together with a whole bunch of fighters, and it would have been taken by surprise, and not going to last long without the cavalry. So
that's true, because later on you do see the smaller ships attack Enterprise, and while it's taking some damage, it's not getting destroyed, far from it. So you're right, it is probably a mothership job that absolutely smashes it up. So yeah, I knew straight away it was the Cayuga, and I thought, oh, here we go. What was pretty cool was this is like a predatory kind of species, so they do things to stop their prey escaping, essentially. They put signal jamming in effect for comms, for transporters, I think they were the main two things, wasn't it? Comms and transporters were down because of this transponder thing that was in the middle of the
Right.
planet. You couldn't get to it. You couldn't do anything. So, yeah, a little bit shocked by that. Did you find it a little bit weird, Gray, when you saw the image? So when they sent an image, the Gorn to Starfleet, because I don't know if they can even communicate in the way you and I know. Like we saw them in the last season, and they use pulses of light to talk to each other. So comms might be an issue. Ignore the ambulance going past people. I really need to get a stream deck so I can mute my mic easily.
Just go like this.
Yeah, exactly. One thing, the downside of having a mic that's a little bit older than the last one, was you thought you were getting a hail from the Gorn to Starfleet, but you weren't. They literally just sent an image, which was forwarded on from Starfleet to the Enterprise, and it was literally the borders that they'd drawn up, and the borders between where the Federation and their space were meant that they couldn't get to the planet. And that's convenient. Right. You take it over and then you put the border. And April is obviously, you're not allowed to go down. You're not allowed to go and do anything. We do not want to provoke another war after the Klingon War. And I thought that was a bit, I mean, maybe that's the only way they know how to communicate. But I thought that was a bit, this is our borders, like no negotiation. They just tell you where their borders are and that's it. I don't know.
Well, the only thing that I thought was kind of a little odd was I can understand them trying to say where their borders are, but you would have thought that Starfleet would have said something like, "Would you just draw this up today?" You know, I mean, I would think they would have been. I mean, seriously, I would have been a little more of a stink and just said like, I mean, where'd you determine this one? I mean, you know,
yeah.
but again, of course, I get it. They didn't want to start into a war, you know, coming off another war, and especially since they don't know tons about the Gorn either. They're just discovering things.
Exactly.
So I can excuse that, but I did think they would have said a little something. I would have loved to have seen Pike just say, "What, they draw it up today?" That would have been great.
What was that? Was that drawn by a 5-year-old with crayons? Like, come on, man!
How'd they do this?
You were obviously using MS Paint, clearly. But yeah, so they can't technically go down and save the rest of the Kyoga's crew, but of course they're going to go down. We knew that would happen.
They got to figure out something, right?
Yeah. And Pike does the usual. I won't order you to do this, but they're a loyal crew and they all volunteer like suckers. They are. They just love death, I think, and they all agree to go down. Now, Pike has a little sneaky trick up his sleeve, though, Gray, and this is what I'd mentioned here before, which you've got a piece on as well. That he has a little trick to try and help the fight, because the normal phasers don't work so well in the Gorn because of their shielding and whatnot. Several shots you need to get, at least a clear headshot. So you need something with a bit more oomph. Hence, Pike asks the transporter chief to internal transporters are working, which is handy, to transport a special package he's got to the ready room, and he does. And he opens it up, and it's basically a pulse phaser rifle, but they just call them phaser rifles. And I was like, I don't remember seeing this too often in TOS. And then I asked Gray about it, and it's not such a big thing, is it, Gray?
Well, in TOS, we only saw the phaser rifle once and once only, and that was in the first episode that James T. Kirk popped up in, which came after the Cage, which is kind of ironic because the Cage being, you know, Pike. Anyway, the first episode with Kirk was Where No Man Has Gone Before, and you see him holding a phaser rifle. Now, that was it. The rest of TOS, you never, ever saw a phaser rifle again. And then the only time we ever saw one after TOS was we did see it sporadically in Deep Space Nine and in Voyager, etc. Not many times.
Voyager used it a bit more than other series, I think.
Yeah. So it's not that it doesn't exist. It's just that, but in terms of TOS, you just didn't see it. The hand, first of all, I'm sure some of it because of cost, and the other
it's
part
of
it too, probably
it's a prop. It doesn't cost that much.
And that phaser rifle that they did have in TOS was it looked more like a Nerf gun. So like, I mean, they could have come up with something a little better. But
Nerf gun, right, man? Those things, those Nerfs, when they hit you in the eye, man, it's sore, it's painful, it does the damage.
That's right.
So I thought that's about that.
Yeah. But that's where, as far as Star Trek is concerned, it never was seen after that in TOS. But then we started seeing it coming back, which makes sense. They got to have other weapons. The thing that I thought was kind of cool in this, though, is that they specifically were working on these weapons on what they availably knew about the Gorn. And of course, none of this was mentioned in TOS. So we have these weapons that are now transphasic or whatever, and it's adjusted to their shields, and it packs more of a punch to their physiology, blah, blah, blah. So, which is good. I mean, that would make sense. I mean, you need something to be a little bit better than what you got that works.
Yeah, true. That only tickles them.
Yeah. So I was glad to see that, and of course it's a nice jet black color, just like their black ops uniforms, and they didn't want to make it yes.
I always get into trouble for grey for never showing it enough. So there you go.
Now, if you're not seeing this, you have to go to YouTube to see this. If you're listening to it,
and there's Grey's one.
And there's Grey's green, yeah. See, so.
And there's a
coffee break.
50th special of the original crew.
Well, I got to start breaking out all my other cups now. No, not yet.
So it was interesting about the phaser rifle because it does mean business, that thing. And it was cool to actually see its origins there because of the Gorn. Because the original...
But they did have they did also have a couple of grenades, though. Those round balls or whatever it was.
What were they called again? Begins with an N.
I don't remember, but I remember them throwing them and they were effective.
Neutron grenades or something like that. Yeah. That were effective, apparently. So yeah, no, that was interesting. Great, thank you for mentioning that. To get down to the planet, they have to be sneaky, and they can't be seen. Of course, they're not allowed to cross the border technically. So they plan to pretend to be a bit of the Kyoga debris, which works actually beautifully. Although I'm surprised they didn't coast it in until closer, because you still saw the engines on, the impulse engines, Grey. And I'm surprised that wasn't a bit of a giveaway. Like, get your orientation right and then turn everything off. But they didn't do that. Just a little bit of power. And then the bit we saw again in the teaser trailer for the season, or the season trailer, should I say, was the bit where they literally go into the planet and they start plummeting down. And that's where Pike's looking like he's shitting himself. And he's asking Ortega, do you plan to turn the engines on anytime soon? She's like, no, I need to get really low to avoid being seen. And he just, I was expecting the cheeks to start folding back as if, it was like proper G-force.
Well, the good thing is I'm glad that they did that scene because it explained it a little better to us. Because originally I'm going like, you're a test pilot. What is this? What's the problem?
Yeah.
But now it made more context, and you notice that it wasn't just Pike though. Everybody was looking pretty white. I mean, Mbenga's like, and then the others are going like, whoa, and they're all wiping sweat like this in their brow.
She loved it.
Oh yeah, no, that was her.
She said, weren't you a test pilot? And he said, yes, but I was a test pilot at light speed. This is why you're one of the best pilots, because you are the OG test pilot, really.
Yeah, he was going, you're definitely born for this.
And in the nick of time, they fly up. Of course, they don't crash. And
I did think the effect was pretty nice, because as they're screaming down and the engines aren't turned on, you see them disappear like over a ridge. So at the rate that they're going, I mean, you definitely do got to know how to fly, because all of a sudden you see it zoom up over the brush, and that was a great shot. So it's just like, you can imagine what was happening. They were just popping the engines at the last second. Woo!
And technically, they probably even then shouldn't really survive. But of course, we nitpick there. The speed they were going at, the angle to pull up, you'd have no neck probably left afterwards. But they saved the day.
It could also have been a hill like this where they were coming up.
Exactly. We don't know what was under. We don't know what was behind that ridge.
Either way, it was some great fancy flying. So
it was. She did save the day. So Pike. So the away team is Pike, Lan, Ortega, and Mbenga, I believe. And I noticed they're wearing their cool Black Ops gear. I like this. So when you see Pike in the Black Ops gear, he just looks badass, man. I don't know why they wear. I mean, is it armor or something? Is that you can take a shot or two?
I'm sure it is.
Because if it's just because it looks cool, then.
Well, the nice thing is it's more realistic because of cost. When you go to the original TOS, when some of those missions that they partake in TOS, they should have been wearing stuff like that, and yet they just wear their shirt. with no protection.
Yeah.
So it really makes sense. You're going to wear something that's got some kind of armor to it, so you don't get killed right away.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, totally makes sense. So I was glad to see that.
The new phaser rifles work as they kill a Gorn youngling, smash it up pretty good, but that's just a youngling that doesn't have the same kind of shielding really at this stage, so it was killed pretty easily. And then as they go in a little, we see this when they're looking through the buildings for the Kyogre crew. They go into one and they get stuck behind a force field. And I'm thinking,
but let's preface that though. They were looking at their tricorder and said that there was human sounds.
Yeah, that sounds why
they figured.
For them.
So they figured there had to be. It was a clear indication of humans. And so when they get over there to see where the humans are, this guy picks up a piece of whatever it was, and he goes, "I don't know what this thing is, but this is what's been doing all the human sounds and stuff, and drove us to the spot."
Yeah,
and then as soon as they said that, bzzz, the horse fields come up,
and they're stuck.
And they're stuck inside. They're like, "What?"
It was almost like a trap that they should have seen coming, but didn't really. And it's probably because the man that set it is a bit of a genius. Who's the man that popped up that's kind of let them out of the jail cell?
Montgomery Scott.
That's his best Scottish impression.
Do you like my accent?
We'll give him 6 out of 10 for that. Yeah, Scotty was here. I don't know if did we hear him before we saw him? No, we saw him before we heard him. That's right, yeah. Because he popped around the corner like, what's going on there? And then that's when he started talking. And I'll be honest with you, I really didn't know who this guy was. I don't think he's a big actor here. He is Scottish. Martin Quinn's his name. Been in several things here at least. But I guess they just picked someone OG to do this, just for a change. And this little device was generated by Scotty himself and introduces himself. And he says, he uses a couple of more Scottish words than, say, even James Stone used. He said this little cool wee device he's got that he's set up all by himself. And he comes from a research ship called the Star Diver, because they thought he was part of the Kyogre crew. He's not. He was nearby when the Gorn attacked, and it was his shuttle that went bombing down, really. So I thought that was interesting. Did you notice, Gray, that this is weird. He introduces himself as lieutenant, not lieutenant, as most people would say, right? And I hear that often in the British Army ranks, right? I hear that lieutenant such and such. And I think it's a British thing. But La'an, I don't know if her character is supposed to be from the UK, but let's assume she is, because, the accent and all that.
Yeah.
She says lieutenant. So I'm really confused, man. There's a little nitpick there. Keep it the same. Like, you can keep your regional words. That's fine. That's what makes it unique. And he's intimidated because everyone introduces themselves, and at this stage, most of them are lieutenants. And he just goes, "Wow, that's a lot of lieutenants there." So he was a little bit out of his depth, a little bit raw Scotty, How happy were you to see Scotty? And what do you think so far? Is it a bit too much? Is it too early?
No, not at all. I was like really, really happy to see Scotty. I was thinking we might have seen him sooner, but we didn't. So I was always hoping that some point we would. And they kept that pretty secret, and they didn't put Scotty in the season trailer.
Mm-hmm.
So really, not many people knew this was going to happen, and they kept it pretty good secret and popped it up. But no, I was extremely happy. As soon as I started hearing the accent, I'm going like, "There's only one," And there he is. And what I really liked about it is they really stuck to they were forming the miracle worker that Scotty was known to be in his career, that he could do a lot of different things and cobble stuff together, and nobody understood how it would work and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And he started it very early, because basically he just goes like, "Yeah, I put this thing together and to mimic human sounds, and built the cage," and they're all just going.
He made it sound easy though. He made it sound easy though. He was like, "Yeah, I made it and out of spare parts, and it didn't take long. Yeah, pretty easy." What?
Yeah, and I loved it. It was great. He's just going like, "I know how to do this shit. That's, it's just whatever." And they're all looking at each other going like, "You built this?" Out of just the stuff around here, like, yeah, and I'm just like, yes, that's it, miracle worker.
Miracle worker, indeed. It was good to see him.
I was just so happy and everything. And the thing I really liked was that now I would assume we're gonna hear a little more about the backstory of Scotty as a character. I really think if James Doohan was, and I've interviewed him and I knew him, so if he was around now, I think he would be very proud. I think he would really think this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
And I really think the way they handled the actor, he would have liked very much. So that was all really cool too.
if
He's very much in character, and I think he was able to bring the character to life in the proper way.
yeah,
So that was cool.
I would like
Because
to.
I maybe me more than others, but because I was raised on TOS, I'm real protective of what I consider to be my characters. So I don't want anybody to screw around with them as too much if possible, because that'll get me nuts.
Yeah,
So I think they really, and they've been very good in this series on repaying the proper respect to reintroducing the older characters before they got on the Enterprise. So that's good.
this is true.
Good, good to hear.
As long as they do it the right way, and I would like to hear if there was. I'll try and search for this after. If there's any interviews with the actor about what he thought about this, that would be great to hear because
There will be now.
he would have been obviously thrilled to take this part, and as any decent actor worth their salt, they would do a little bit of research into it. So he obviously wants to, would imagine, pay homage to James Doohan's character, but obviously make it his own at the same time. So we'll report back if we hear anything decent on that one. So yeah, really, really cool to see the miracle worker himself back. Not back to begin with. And like I said before, it turned out they do find Battelle afterwards in a nearby place. Her and a small number of her crew have survived. They have basically just locked themselves up in a little shop or something. And Scotty, in his genius, is continuing to protect them all. He has built another device. I don't know if it's the same device or another device.
No, it was a different one.
Different device. This one hides them from the Gorn, which was brilliant. So this miracle number 2, he just keeps going. This guy, from stuff that he's cobbled together, man. You know what I mean? He uses.
And the funny thing is, he talks very like like I
it was
just saw
nothing.
how they were talking to each other, and I just figured out a way that we could hide from them based on how they do. And he just, goes along and builds something.
It makes it sound like it was nothing, and that's maybe just him being humble. I don't know, but he basically, it's similar tech that the Gorn use to talk to one another. He uses that same technology to hide from them. So, as Grace says, miracle number 2. And I did forget to mention as well that earlier in the episode, Nurse Chapel does beam back to the Cayuga. And Grace says, is she dead, Jim? Well, we'll find that out shortly. Yeah, I forgot she did. She was beaming up and she was speaking to Battelle on the planet. So, is she dead or not? We don't know. And they don't have a problem killing off main characters. Strange New Worlds. Rest in peace, Emma.
But we know she's not dying. So,
true. But yeah, this was amusing. We do get a funny comment from Pelia to Una about giving her an A+, as she suggests using the Cayuga's hull to smash into the planet to destroy the device that's blocking everything at the moment. And it was hilarious, great, because she said, like, if you'd gave me an answer like that back in the day, I would have gave you an A+. And I could just imagine Una just going, boiling up inside, going, this bloody professor of mine, I outrank you, you're going in the brig for a week.
Well, she definitely gave her a quick stare.
She gave her an evil, didn't she? Yeah.
That was cute.
But it is a great plan. The Gorn do not react to debris, as most people wouldn't, so let's find a way to get the half of that saucer section left into that device, or into the planet to destroy that device, then we can beam everyone up. It was a good plan. And while it's Uhura's idea originally, it's Una that kind of plans it out, so credit where credit's due. Apparently, though, Gray, Spock's the only man to be able to carry this one out. He's going to put rockets on the Kyogre's hull to direct it in the right direction. And apparently no human can do it. I was a bit offended by that. I was a bit, what is it when when you're racist against different species? Not bigot. Xeno,
Yeah.
something. Yeah, you
Yeah,
know
I
what I mean.
forget.
You know what I mean. I was
Yeah.
thinking, really, Spock? Really? Why is that? Because you're stronger? You don't need to be stronger to put bloody rockets on a hull. And there's plenty of other science officers on that ship as well. That's basically what Gray just said, by the way, in his notes. So, Gray, will you... That peed me off just a tiny little bit.
Well, right, and I thought they could have explained it a little better. Like, I understand that he may have a greater knowledge of what needs to be done. He obviously has more strength and endurance, which fine, that works too. But they should have explained it a little better. They just kind of dropped it and then just kind of like, oh yeah, of course. Well, that's one of the nitpicks that I didn't like, because they should have said something like, like in the past, even on TOS episodes, they would say that, such and such is Spock's expertise, because it is,
Yeah.
and you clearly know it is, and of course that's why he's meant for the job. So here they didn't even give any explanation. I'm the man to do it, and they just all assume, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah. We'll let it slide. But
Yeah.
still. So yeah. Next scene.
But that knocks it down a little bit though, because it could have been a higher score. That just because that was pretty blatant. I mean, you felt the same way I did immediately. And if you and I felt like that, definitely a lot of other people were going scratching their head, going like,
it was too late. It was lazy. It was lazy, is what it was.
Exactly.
So yeah, Spock's making his way over to the way he makes his way across to the Kyogre's hull was very Tom Cruise Mission Impossible-esque. He was just gliding over, really cool, just not breaking a sweat. And then the next scene, we literally have Chapel waking up on what's some part of the hull that survived, and she's under a bit of debris, and the air's about to run out, and there's multiple warnings. I would feel it turn around at this stage. It was constant, that warning, Gray. I would feel it turning around and going, Alexa, please stop notifications, or whatever the Starfleet equivalent of Alexa is. Stop it. Mute.
I know that already. Shut up.
I know, I'm struggling to breathe. But yeah, obviously she's in a... They do mention before there's a tiny chance that she could be alive, or other people, because there could be pockets of air. And to be fair, these starships are built so well, future technology and whatnot, that there's bulkheads, there's force fields, there's life support, emergency life support. So yeah, it is 100% possible. But she doesn't have much air at all. She basically jerry-rigs some things together, some pipes and whatnot, and it buys her a whole 1 hour of life support. Which she says she can work with that. And then she sees the Enterprise right outside the window. And she gets a bit excited. So did I, actually. I don't know why. I was like, hey, there it is. And then she gets her torch, her flashlight out. And I thought...
Starts to blink.
Before the light goes out, because I think the battery dies, I thought, that's genius. But no one's probably going to see it, but it is genius. Let's Morse code, bit of SOS.
Yeah.
The battery dies. So, and as she's doing it, this was a nitpick. Spock goes right past that one very window. I'm sorry, it's been blown up, the ship. There's only half of a saucer section, but see that half of that saucer section? That's probably several blocks wide where I stay at the moment. And he goes by that one window.
One window. Well, it's a little poetic license.
I'm laughing. I'm not angry. I'm just, it's a nitpick.
However, with the light thing that you said, I know that they, the light dying out was to show, more desperation, that she couldn't get the signal off.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to have seen that actually work.
Yes, same. Genius.
Because at first you would think that, well, how could it work? I mean, the Enterprise is pretty far away, and and how would they really see it? But what people forget is, in space, you would see it easier than you would on the ground in the surface of a planet. So because there's nothing to block light.
Yeah, but you would have to be looking.
Speaking.
You'd have to be looking at that exact direction.
Of course,
it's not as if sensors don't pick that up.
Right, of course. So that would have been kind of cool. I think they should have left that and as a way to find her, but it's okay. I mean, it's not really a nitpick. It's just something that I think you and I would have done differently.
So, someone would have to have been, say, for example, on Enterprise in their sonic shower, with a nice window and having a shower, sonic shower, looking out. Oh, there's a light over there. We should probably go and investigate. But our flashlight, it dies anyway, so that wasn't going to happen.
And even in the 24th, no, wait a minute, 23rd century, whatever SOS still stands.
It will always stand for time because it's a true way. I don't know SOS, but so she sees Spock, needs to try and get to him. She slowly starts making her way towards him, but kind of comes around the corner a bit too quick and sees a Gorn, a full... Right, we'll get to this, right, because this is a beefy paragraph from both of us. Comes around the corner, sees an adult Gorn, constantly tapping... Because you hear it, you hear a command code not accepted, please enter correct command code, over and over again. I feel like saying, Alexa, again, would you shut up your notifications? It just doesn't work. And she comes around really too quickly, but she backs up slowly, and she looks like she's seen a ghost, like Chapel at this stage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a couple of things to talk about this scene, Gray. So, and we'll get to the bigger bit after, but the first thing I'm thinking, the Gorn, right? They're reptile-type species. They look like something out of Mortal Kombat, actually. Reptile, you've got Sub-Zero, you've got Scorpion, you've got Reptile.
Yeah.
It looks like him, but with a suit on, to be fair. And you've got claws. So there's this alien, this reptile alien, with like claws just tapping away. I mean, the intelligence is there, I'm sure it is.
Sure.
What do you make of the Gorn, mate, right? Because we'll get to the bit about canon in a moment, but I'm thinking, when you see a species like this, normally, now I'm not an expert in evolution, I'm not, but we probably were like little slimy things back in the day before we evolved into such and such apes and then human beings, right? Or gorillas, should I say. No, was it gorillas? Aye, and then human beings. I wonder why the Gorn look the way they are, how they've not evolved beyond that, because normally species will evolve beyond that level to get to a level where they can build a starship. How do you build starships with claws? How do you do half the things that bipedal... do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm being very sciencey here, but that's part of Star Trek, isn't it? That's why we love science fiction.
Well, I mean, I've read enough articles looking at our own planet and our own history. And a lot of people were saying that if the asteroids had not killed off the dinosaurs, that you probably would have had intelligent dinosaurs.
Really?
Yeah. The evolution would have continued. Because you think about it, it would have been another, what was it, 60, 80 million years later, we start popping up. So if it hadn't destroyed and it went on a natural evolution path, it could have very easily turned into a planet of intelligent dinosaurs.
True, that's interesting. Because the adult Gorn was standing up. It was walking. It's walking, unlike the younglings that crawl along like dogs.
Well, the adult knew what he was doing because he was tapping on the computer to get information. So he was there, kind of like on his own Black Ops mission, to see what kind of information he could find, and trying to figure it out.
Do you not evolve from being a predatory species, though? Do you not evolve from that to? I mean, yeah, the Klingons, you could argue with them that they're a warmongering species, but they don't eat people that I'm aware of. But that you've got the Gorn who literally lay their eggs in some of their victims and then kill some of the others for the young and whatnot. And I just think I thought you would evolve beyond that. But Gray didn't watch all of Star Trek Enterprise, as we know. So in the Xindi arc, there was 4 or 5 subspecies of the Xindi, and one of the species was actually there were amphibious animals. They were the most intelligent of all of them, actually, and they had starships, but they literally most of their stuff was in a big aquatic pool, and they would swim up. And when Archer was beamed up there, they literally beamed them up without any air first time. They went, "Oh shit, right, okay, let's put some oxygen into that section," and that was for people, the rest of their own species that weren't the same as them. So. I think I've probably answered my own point and question. It's just a little bit strange when you see whales and fish and stuff and reptiles building starships. It just doesn't...
Also, if you remember, the original Star Trek lore that we never really saw was that there was a section of the ship that was run by dolphins. And in lower decks, they decided to exploit that, and they show the dolphins doing their thing.
Cetacean ops.
Exactly. So that actually was real, but they, for cost's sake, or maybe people wouldn't believe it, they never put it in the real Trek stuff. But Lower Decks, to their credit, kind of grabbed onto that lore that they found, and they just said, "Oh, we got to do this," and they did it.
Yeah, but how
So there you
realistic
go.
is it? We knew it was a part of the Enterprise D. That was a thing. It was. I think so in a technical manual somewhere it exists, but I think it was dolphins, as in for research, whatnot, rather than talking to them and getting the dolphins to pretend they're actual Starfleet officers. I think that's a bit too far fetched for me. But Lower Decks is slapstick comedy, so.
Right. But see, but really, so many things could happen. I mean, it's not beyond the realm that a dolphin, which is one of the more intelligent creatures in the sea, probably the most intelligent creature in the sea, couldn't have evolved into something like that over a lot of years.
Possibly, yeah. Hey, that's why I brought it up, because I was really curious about it, and that's we definitely diverge and go into like big science rants like this sometimes. Not always negative, sometimes positive, but we of course see and I was a bit confused by this, Gray, but you obviously you've elaborated on it. We see a proper adult Gorn for the first time, and that is against canon, which I wasn't 100% sure. I thought maybe subconsciously it was, but you confirmed obviously it is, and that makes me a little bit upset, because why are you screwing with canon? Why? Well, why? Why was that so difficult that we don't see them? You don't see the Romulans for a long time. They put the Romulans in Star Trek Enterprise, Grey. You never see a Romulan, though. That's how they get around the canon. But why not do the same here? Why did they do that, Grey?
I just think because they'd already opened up a can of worms, and they decided that if they were going to mess with canon, they're going to do it for the Gorn, because they need that enemy. In the original TOS, it was always the Klingons, among other things. In the Next Generation, it was the Borg. You had to have some big bad, and the big bad in the early days would have been the Gorn. And many, many people have always wondered what the Gorn were all about from that one episode on TOS. I'm not saying I'm a fan of it, but I guess if you're going to have to screw with canon or go flat out against it like they did here, okay, I'll give you a do not go to jail card this one time, because it had to be done, and it makes sense with the story, I guess. So I may not be happy about a crash in canon, but I'm not that upset about it. But
yeah.
But again, technically it has happened. What would have been funnier is if we saw the adult Gorn and he had the mask on of the Gorn from TOS. Now that would have been funny as hell. I would have laughed so hard. That'd have been great.
I was a little bit surprised by that, because I kind of thought that, and obviously Gray's cleared it up for me, that was not supposed to happen yet. They could have easily skirted around that, but like Gray says, I think once you've kind of partially opened the can of worms, you may as well just go ham and do it all properly. It just doesn't make sense, because in the original series, when they first encountered the Gorn, I almost expect a Uhura or something to go, "Oh, Captain Kirk, like, watch these guys, we face them back," and obviously she didn't, because that took place before. But in terms of a chronological order,
yeah, it messes everything up, because you're going to sit there and go like, "Well, why didn't later on Uhura explain that to Kirk?"
Use the pulse rifle. Use the rifle. That's what beats them.
Yeah. So that's all just kind of like, yeah. I mean, I don't get too bonkers about stuff like that, only because, again, I go back to the saying like you and I talked about, and that is that when you're doing new Trek with all the availability you have to all the resources that you have that they didn't have back then, you can't possibly just create the TOS feel and not make it more what it should be and what they couldn't do back then.
True.
You know what I'm saying? So you get you get the Enterprise that looks a lot like the original episode. Does it look exactly like the Enterprise of TOS? No. Does it look a lot like it? Yes. Does it carry the same emotion? Yes, it does. The inside of they made pretty good care of designing the new Enterprise, new to us anyway, on Strange New Worlds, to keep that retro feel of the original TOS, but you can't make it exact. You just can't.
I don't think it looks very similar to the original Enterprise, Gray. I must admit. I think it looks similar, but I can't say it looks close to it. It doesn't, because
No.
the original Enterprise was not different shades of a color. What is the obsession with having different shades of grey? Just have
I
it
a lot
one
of shades
color.
and I'm grey.
We can't have too many greys either. So, but yeah, no. I hope that, I've always said near the end of Strange New Worlds that it gets into a massive battle, and at the very, very end, they go in for a refit, and it comes out a lot closer to the original Enterprise, and they come up with some reason. I would totally love that, and I would totally love the last episode for it to be the cage again. Do the cage again. Just literally do the same rough story, so that Pike can have his happy ever after before he hands it over to Kirk. That's just, I know we're diverging, but...
Or if you're going to do the cage again, you add a little bit of backstory here and there during that episode, so that it is the same, but not quite the same. And that would be cool. I agree with you. I think that'd be nice, because then that would be the handoff to, if they do it, and it's to a TOS. But we're going to save that for a special. So
yeah, he's got ideas, hasn't he? Which hasn't fully told me about, so I might have ruined them for him.
No.
So yeah, back to the episode. Scotty has I think it's the same kind of device it uses to hide from the Gorn on his shuttle. So they literally all have to go. Well, not all of them. I think it's who was it? It was Laan and Pike that go with him to Scotty's shuttle, and he finds a little device. It's kind of fused into the console, so he has to get it out. And they are confronted with Junior Gorn, which is weird. It doesn't attack them. Now, I knew it was happening right off the bat. It doesn't attack them straight away. Like, Patel just stands... Oh, Patel's there as well, sorry, apologies. Patel's there as well, and she just kind of confronts them, and the Junior Gorn gets up in her face, but doesn't attack. And I just thought it was a bit strange, and then it buggers off, and they don't shoot it. And then Pike was asking questions like, what's going on here? Why didn't it attack you? And she tries to brush him off. But then she kind of confesses a little bit after, and she went, well, it attacked me, and it kind of laid some eggs in me. And I knew that was going to happen. As soon as that got right in the face, just think of Alien, the movie. It didn't attack Sigourney Weaver because it knew she was going to die anyway, and it's incubating your young, so you're not going to kill the thing that's looking after your young. Did you see the writing on the wall with that one there, Grace?
Yeah, I thought it was a little... I started seeing it when she was going like, just back off, and she was getting ready to confront it. But then I was sure of it after it looked right at her and just decided, nah. And I'm going like, uh-oh, this is not good. She has the eggs.
Do you think they could save her? Because at this stage, they don't know anything about the Gorn, right? So obviously Chapel later on puts her in a stasis field and whatnot. But you don't know if you can get them out. Or maybe they have to chop off the arm quick before it spreads to the rest. Because you see it. And it doesn't look like eggs as in the traditional sense. But they're in her arm. Chop off the arm, quick.
Well, the only other thing I think of is, since they're encountering the Gorn, they might find something that they can use to, save her. Or I was thinking also that they could put her into the transporter buffer until they come up with a
way to remove the eggs inside the pattern buffer.
Right. I mean, that would make more sense to me. And then you could have a whole new storyline in a way where Pike is feeling terrible that she's in the buffer, but there's nothing they can do, and he keeps on wanting her to be good one day, and one day she will, or something,
or chop off her arm,
and
just give her a synthetic one or something, whatever.
I'm gonna make this quick, hon. Come over here. I got a phaser. How you feel now? My bloody arm's on the floor. What do you think I'm gonna feel like?
But we don't know generally. I would like to think they can save her, but she didn't want to confess. She was going to stay there, literally on the planet, and lure them all away. But Pike's like, no, you're coming back with me. Let me at least attempt to save you. And I'm glad she didn't fight that too much, because I don't. We'll take all the precautions. He says it's fine. Let's not give up so easily. And I'm glad that they didn't. But back on the Cayuga Hull, Spock and Chapel finally meet up with one another, but there's a adult Gorn there. Now, from the shot we saw in the season trailer, Gray, it looked like Spock was on the outside of the hull with the Gorn behind him. But I think that was just positioned so they're on the bridge of the Kyogre at this stage, and the camera must have been facing Spock, who has the backdrop of the rest of the hull behind him. That's what it looked like. And it looked like something from Alien the movie, where this thing's kind of crouching down with a big tail. And then it goes and messes up Spock. Now, Spock's supposed to be a good bit stronger than a human being, but the Gorn's just messing him up, man. Just absolutely smashing him up. He has no chance. And you're in 0G, you can't get the same power into shots and stuff that you normally would. So this is why when it gets to the episode where Kirk is facing a Gorn, he does get smashed about a bit himself. Of course he does, but he lays the smackdown on that Gorn. And I'm just like, I believe what I'm seeing with Spock and that Gorn than I am in the TOS episode. And you could
remember
say...
in the TOS episode, the Gorn didn't even have a tail.
True. Maybe it's evolved.
It was just a human with a Halloween head over him.
Maybe it's evolved in the last 5 years, but who knows? I don't know. But what I see on the Kyogre Hull bridge was more realistic, is what I'm saying. Sure. I mean, these are reptile creatures that are really strong.
That thing was using its tail a lot.
It was to strangle him.
Yeah, they knocked a phaser out of his hand with his tail. It bat him around with his tail.
I think it does a lot because it's a reptile. It's a bit like almost not quite a T-Rex, but its limbs are not as effective. These front limbs are not as effective as its hind limbs, which it needs to stand up, so it's got its tail as a weapon. Sure. So you're right. And it's all armor. It's all armor. They've got the suit on and the armor, so...
Yeah.
You know? And that was saving the... Spock was saving the Gorn from smashing up Chapel. But then, literally something from Alien, it uses its tail to go around Spock's neck, and then it gets its claw and then just sticks it on his helmet, and it was slowly crushing it. And I'm thinking, Jesus, Spock's maybe in trouble here a little bit. But Chapel does, of course, save the day. She gets the phaser that was knocked out his hand. Now, this doesn't really kill the Gorn as such, but it's enough to piss him off. And at least hurt him. So Chapel zaps him, a nice shot, and that gives Spock enough time to grab a bit of debris, a bit of metal, and then smash it into the helmet of the Gorn, who literally slowly suffocates. And as Gray mentions at the end here, because I don't know if he'll say it, I'm thinking exact same thing here, Gray. I'm thinking die, bitch. Pretty much. I thought that. I said that at the exact same time.
As soon as he grabbed that piece of metal, you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And he just smashes right through his helmet, and then just rightfully so pulled it out so that the air would escape. And he's sitting there going, and I'm going, and that's what I'm thinking. Die, bitch, die. He's like, and then you see him stop moving, and he floats outside into space. It was great.
He's dead, Jim. He's dead. Yeah. 1-0 for the good guys. So yeah, they literally, the rockets do activate, and they do get out in time. Literally, you see them kind of floating up from the hull of the Kyogre, and then Gray mentions here, great shot of the Kyogre hull come. It was like something in a movie actually. It comes storming down, and it literally takes out the device blocking transporters and comms, and then Chapel and Spock are beamed up to safety. That whole scene with the Gorn and the crashing of the Kyogre hull, that was brilliant. Absolutely loved that.
Yeah.
But of course, we don't know. Let's say we still don't know if Chapel is the only one there at the time to maybe help save Batel. Mbenga's still on the planet, but she puts her in a stasis field at the moment until they know what they're going to do, because there's so much of the crew still on the planet. And that's the weird thing. Now, another funny bit with Scotty coming up. He's now in the Enterprise, which was a nice feeling to see the man on the place that he belongs on. And he meets Pelia, and Pelia is just like Scotty. Like I was like, how many people does she recognize, man?
She's thousands of years old, so I guess and what's good memory.
What's the line she uses, Grave, which I had a proper chuckle about right after?
Well, she was going like, "What are you doing here?" First, like, what's going on? But then he said, "You know him?" They're going like, "You know him?" He says, "Yeah, he was one of my greatest students." He says, but he had the worst grades, which I assume the way they said it was kind of like, all right, he was so innovative that he was doing all kinds of crazy things that his instructors didn't want him to do. And so,
Some people,
it's
right?
which happens a lot sometimes in real life. But real geniuses are often looked at as being very bizarre, stupid, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you realize they're not.
Very
Yeah.
true, great. Very true. That was a
Yep.
nice little scene because she is old,
Yeah.
isn't she? She's going to have a lot of students and people that know being a professor and back in the day as well. So that was amusing. The rest of the landing party has that went down originally, not the Cayugas folks, has been beamed up to. Sorry, no, apologies. The landing party, as in the Cayugas landing party, has been fortunately beamed up to the Gorn ship because the Enterprise does try to get them back, but it's too late. As soon as that device came down, the Gorn were really smart. I mean, I'm not going to say this. They're an intelligent species. They used their brains. They went, okay, we can't hold them down there like we want to, so we're going to take them onto our ship, and you don't stand a chance against us, which, as we saw from the Cayuga, they don't, Grey. So
Right.
I didn't see that coming. You didn't see that coming either, did you?
Nope. I mean, when I saw them beam up, I just assumed that,
We'll get the rest.
the Enterprise had beamed them up. But then
Yeah.
when you saw, I don't know if it was Spock or Euro, they were sitting there going like, well, there's no life signs there to beam up. And I'm going like, what? And then you sit there and they're both doing like, what? They were just there. What do you mean you can't beam them up? And I'm going like, didn't you beam them up? And then the next word was the Gorn did. And I just go like, oh shit. Those people are lunch and dinner.
Yeah, lunch and dinner and egg sacks and whatever you want. And now we have the Gorn attacking Enterprise. That's the small hunter ships, but they're still packing a bit of a punch. There's several of them firing at the Enterprise. A communique comes through from Starfleet. Leave immediately from the vicinity. And then you just see Pike standing by the view screen in a possible situation. He looks like when his crew's life's on the line, that's one of his few failures as a human being and a captain. Not as a human being, as a captain. He doesn't know what to do. He wants to save them, but he knows he has to get out. And he doesn't. I thought the last thing would be warp us away and we'll come up with a plan, right? To be continued. But he doesn't.
I was thinking that too.
He doesn't. He's just standing there, and then Ortega's like, Una's like, orders
Una's
captain.
going like, orders captain, yeah.
He's confused. He doesn't know what to do. So I think hopefully Una pulls rank is what I'm hoping she does, and just orders something.
I'm thinking a little bit differently. Like, yes, it looks like he was not knowing what to do, but I also think at the same time he was running a lot of shit through his mind to try to figure out what to do because he really didn't want to have to leave them there. So right at that moment, they just, of course, to be continued, and there's your cliffhanger. So it will be interesting, and it was a lot of good writing. Now, and when we do finally see the season 3 opener, the writing better continue.
Exactly what it left off.
I want to see a smart way. Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can think of is he's gonna have a hard decision to make, or the only other thing I can think of is the Starfleet cavalry arrives or something like that. But I don't think so because they already said they told him to leave.
No, the Starfleet cavalry never arrives because they're only ever the one bloody starship in that sector, as we know.
And they're always at Starbase 1. So
what are these starships doing? They're all hanging about Starbase 1. Actually do some exploring.
I think it's funny because you hear other star bases, but rare. They always go to Starbase 1. Well, what do you think? Starbase 1. Starbase 1. Starbase 1.
But it's miles out of the way, Captain, or light years out of the way. It's my favorite. It's my favorite starbase. We're going back there.
Yeah, man, we're going there. Come on.
Great. What did you give this episode score wise and why?
I went 9 out of 10, and I was kind of going for the 8 out of 10, but then when I saw Scotty, I had to bump it up a number, so it went to 9. But overall, I thought it was really well written. I love the action. I love the tense moments. I thought it was acted very well. I mean, the whole thing was pretty well put together.
Yeah,
there was the little things here and there, but not enough to really hurt the episode. So so I thought it was really good. So I was glad at least. We'll probably have to go back and look at the 10 again, but I think the majority of the 10 were either good or great. But there was a couple stinkers in there, more than like 2 stinkers right off the bat, which is too many out of 10. I mean, if you're gonna have one stinker out of 10, okay, but two, that's a bad average.
What was the other
out
one
of
you
10.
did? The music episode.
The
you
one
didn't like?
where Leon and Kirk went back
Oh
in time.
yeah, that had so much potential to be better, but
That whole thing was just it was just too hard to believe.
It was like a soap opera a little bit. It just didn't seem like an episode of Star Trek. It just didn't feel it. As soon as they beamed to the past or the transport, I was like, does it feel Star Trek?
There was just so many. I mean, if you guys want to go, your fans out there, go back and look at our review. And we were poking holes in that thing left and right because there was just some stuff that just wasn't making sense. 2 and 2 was not equaling 4 in the episode.
Far from it. I gave this. It's always usually a close score. I originally was 8 out of 10, but it's 8.5 out of 10, and it was similar to Grey. I bumped it up half a score because of Scotty. It's maybe tempted to bump it up a whole point because of Scotty, but he's getting half a point. And yeah, I would take Scotty out of it. It was a good episode on its own. It stood on its own very well, and that's what you want. You shouldn't have to be relying on any one thing or character or person to improve an episode, but he did, and I hope they don't overuse him like they're doing with Kirk at the moment. Is all I'll say.
No, please, that's for sure.
He's not supposed to be there yet.
I did read an article. I think I sent the article to you, and in the article, they said you're definitely going to see more of Scotty in season 3. They already said.
I mean, he could be on Enterprise working under Pelia, couldn't he? As like the second Apprentice. In charge is So he's working.
Well, I don't know how true this is, but the article inferred that Pelia is a temporary. She's not going to stay there for forever.
That is true. Actually, yeah.
She's going to get back to teaching and whatever else she does. So yeah, I think the theory that you just came up with makes sense. So they could have Pelia, but Scotty could be her shadowing her.
Yeah.
To learn more or whatever about the Enterprise, and then which gives you the reason why he would end up on the Enterprise after.
Makes sense.
So,
makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much. We might take like a week off or something. I don't know. We'll see. We might be back for a special next week. But please always put comments below what you like and don't like, because we're looking for ideas as well. I'm not the great idea person, but if there's things in Star Trek you want us to talk about, we can do. Just let us know.
Yep.
But until then, until next episode or next special, thank you for tuning in and do your thing, Mr. Gray.
Long and prosper, everybody.
Oh boy.
Bye.